at this huge bus. And I was just wondering, as the bus is just sitting out there, and then Nancy said, "Oh, by the way, Genevieve is joining you today to talk about that bus." I said, "You're kidding me."
That's what it takes for me to get on your show. I got to get a bus in front of the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah, right. Genevieve Wood is Vice President of Leadership for America Operations. What is America Operations?
Armstrong, basically what my job entails is all the great policy work that we do here at the Heritage Foundation, ensuring that all of us who market it to everyone across the country, whether it's economic policy, foreign policy, social policy, that we are all headed in the same direction and on full cylinders in doing so. So I'm kind of an internal traffic cop.
Now, what direction are we headed?
Well, I think with the Leadership for America, if elected officials in the Congress and the White House were following the plans and policy solutions that Heritage often lays out, we'd be headed in a much better direction than we currently are right now. But that's a big part of what our bus tour is about, is really getting those policies in front of the American people and not just helping them make wise choices this fall when they decide to elect a new president and new members of Congress, but also to help them hold those folks accountable once they get to Washington. Because you and I both know you can elect good people and they get to D.C. and they disappoint. And we got to make sure that doesn't happen because our nation's at a turning point on a lot of issues, but the one that we're championing right now is getting people to pay attention to the fact the spending binge that the government has been on, not just for the past 3 years, but for many years. The debt that we're putting off to the next generation we can't keep kicking the can down the road. We've got to get our fiscal house in order, and that's what our Saving the American Dream tour and plan is all about.
But, the problem is with both political parties, Genevieve.
Oh, you're absolutely right. That's when people say, "Oh, well, President Obama." Yes, they're absolutely right. The debt and spending has quadrupled under him. They're right about that. But Republicans have been a big part of this problem too. And you know what? Frankly, Armstrong, all of us are guilty in some respects because we haven't been. Politicians aren't going to do something they don't. That's hard to do, right? Remember when President Bush went around talking about Social Security reform? Remember the backlash that happened there? We are going to have to reform entitlement programs. We are going to have to overhaul those. Otherwise, our children, their grandchildren, we're going to be leaving them with a huge debt. And not only is that, just not a good thing for them financially, it's morally wrong to pass off to others what we're spending today. That's just wrong.
So how do we can't change it through legislation. The president, again, missed his deadline and is not going to submit his budget for another week. The deficit is still spiraling out of control. It's an election year, which is only going to make it worse. How is it that this bus tour, any other tour, is going to impact this in any significant way? What makes what you're doing so unique and has the potential of landing a heavy punch?
Well, I think, first of all, it starts first and foremost with the policy ideas that we've put forth. Towards the mid part of last year in 2011, Heritage's policy team, which had spent months on this, put forth the plan called Saving the American Dream. And it is a very comprehensive plan taking on tax reform, entitlement reform, saying where we have to cut government spending, talking about the right way to reform health care. That's a comprehensive plan that would fix the debt, cut our spending. It balances the budget in 10 years and keeps it balanced, and it restores prosperity, frankly, in the country. It's a huge, comprehensive plan, but we start there. I mean, you have to do the hard work of saying, look, we know we're in a fix. How do we get out of it? It's not an easy step. It's not just about cutting waste, fraud, and abuse in any government program. Yes, there's plenty of that out there, but Armstrong, as you well know, we could get rid of a lot of government programs that many conservatives think, you know what, why are we giving so much money to the UN? We give too much money to the Department of Education. Some folks say, hey, look at all this money we're spending on wars and defense. All of those things, if you cut them, would not fix our problem. The big elephant, so to speak, in the room are entitlements. 43% of taxpayer dollars today, 43% of what the federal government spends money on, which of course is from our tax dollars, is to the entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That's right now. That's not, if you go out 25 years from now, it consumes the entire federal budget. So this isn't about trimming around the edges. We got to change the way that we're doing things. And it is going to take an act of Congress. But the reason I think this tour matters is because we're going to folks around the country. And look, you may hear this on your show. I see it when I go out and speak to folks. People are paying attention in a way they haven't. We saw it in the 2010 elections. This election year, I think people are paying attention to the debt. They're concerned about it in ways they haven't been in years past. They're hungry for solutions. And frankly, we'll see how much of those we hear from candidates this year. But even if candidates say the right thing, when they come to Washington, they've got to have an electorate that is willing to keep their feet to the fire. And our tour is about educating folks, telling them about saving the American dream, and saying, come 2013, if we've got new folks in Washington who can make a difference, make sure they have the courage to take on these big challenges, because they are big, and no politician's going to take them on, frankly, no matter how good they are, if they don't think the public's behind them.
So let me play the devil's advocate. There is no question that the entitlement programs need to be cut. And that has not happened. And I think something else that you're advocating here, I think resonates, and that is shared sacrifices. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a share in these sacrifices. But the problem with these shared sacrifices, the American people reflect the leadership in Congress. Yes, cut the entitlements, cut these programs, but let's start with someone else.
That's right. No, you're right about that. You're right, and this is the message we're having to take to folks, is saying we just try to lay it on the table, because like I said, I show them, we have visual charts that you don't have to read too much into them. You can easily see what the problems are. Most people, they've heard Social Security is a problem, they've heard this, but everybody always thinks, well, if we just, like you said, cut somewhere else. Look, when you look at the numbers and you look at the just cold hard facts, people can see, ooh, we cut this, and this, and we still have this huge problem. You mean we really are going to have to reform? And listen, when we say cut, we're really talking about reform. The fact is, things like Social Security were never intended, or they certainly never should have been intended, to be middle-class and wealthy entitlement programs, which they are. Bill Gates gets a Social Security check. So does Warren Buffett. Do they really need that to take care of them in retirement? Meantime, we have people living off Social Security. That's all they're getting, and they're below the poverty line. We ought to be having programs that are a true safety net and are truly helping those who are in need. Others, and anybody, if Warren Buffett falls through the floor, if the bottom falls out of his bank account and his stocks and in his portfolio, and he needs a safety net, it'll be there for him. But until he needs it, why are we sending him a Social Security check every month?
Let me let me challenge you with this, because obviously I have a lot of respect for you, and I know you're sincere and dedicated. There's a big difference between entitlement programs, Genevieve. With all the discussions that we're having in just about every state about reforming how you term reforming entitlement programs, it does occur that there are two kinds of entitlements in this country: earned entitlements and unearned entitlements. Mm-hmm. The earned entitlements are usually paid for by the recipients, and the unearned entitlements are usually paid for by all the taxpayers. Could you differentiate the two, and where you would like these cuts to take place?
Well, I think, like I said, Social Security, for example, is something. Medicare is something. It doesn't matter how much money you make. When you hit a certain age, you're a part of those programs in terms of receiving money back from them. And all of us, our whole working life, pay into those. And what we need to do is take a look and say, look, if these are supposed to be true safety net programs, speaking now again specifically about Social Security, what we ought to be doing is allowing more people, and you have to phase in the program at certain ages. We should be asking people to save, but save for their own retirement, not having to put it into a government fund that, as you well know, those dollars don't reside here in Washington. They're being spent all the time for other things. So if everybody came and wanted to collect their check today, the money, frankly, wouldn't even be there. But we ought to be doing things like raising the retirement age. We've had the same age for I've forgotten exactly how many years now. We need to raise that. Americans are living longer. This program was never created so that people could live off of it for 20 years in retirement.
That
was not what the program was created for.
Can we extend this a little? Can we come back to you and take a break?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me remind our listeners that we're going to take some calls. Genevieve Woods is our guest. Let me remind our listeners that when we begin to make these reforms to the entitlement programs, people who pay for their earned entitlements have been told that these payments were invested for their benefit and future use. People who receive unearned entitlements have been led to believe that they're entitled even if they have paid nothing toward them. We're going to discuss this more with Genevieve Wood when we return. I'm Armstrong Williams. Don't go away.
Armstrong Williams returns in a moment.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com. For more information on The Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Madison Davis.
Renovations in homes built before 1978 can spread lead paint dust that's harmful to children. Don't let lead paint take away your child's future. For a lead-safe certified contractor in your area, call 1-800-424-LEAD.
If you have a question or comment for today's Armstrong Williams Show, call 733-5620. That's 733-5620. Call and be a part of today's Armstrong Williams Show on 620 AM, where knowledge is power.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
As Heritage's Chief Alignment Officer, Genevieve Wood is responsible for developing and executing operations and marketing strategies to support the Leadership for America campaign. This is the think tank's vehicle to advance 10 transformational initiatives that address domestic, economic, legal, and foreign policies challenges facing our nation. How do you justify continuously giving entitlements to people who've never paid anything into it, but for decades and decades and decades, we make them feel they're entitled to it because they've earned it, and in reality, they've not, and it just continues the system continues to bloat out of control.
Armstrong, you're exactly right. We've created an entitlement mentality in this country, and it's grown and grown and grown to where everybody is beginning to feel as though they're entitled to something from the government. I mean, as I'm sure many of your listeners know, back in 1996, there was this landmark legislation for welfare reform, and a lot of folks said, oh, this is so great, we finally are getting welfare under control. And it was a good piece of legislation, not just because it saved money, more importantly because it actually helped the very people that welfare had for years said it was trying to help, but was creating families that were just dependent on the government year after year, generation after generation. It began to turn that tide. But what many people may not know is that we still today have 70 different welfare programs that exist in this country. 70. So we reformed one. It was a big one back in 96, but there's 70 that still occur today. And look, we as a nation are a sympathetic people. We're a compassionate people. We do want to help those who need the safety net, who need help. But it's not helping anyone to help them in a way that keeps them dependent forever on the government, that keeps them dependent on handouts, and that's true of whether it's just your monthly check, or if it's frankly where you send your children to school, or if it's the health care that you get. People should have more ownership of their lives and of the lives of their family. And the way that we've given the government so much control over that, and we've done it by giving them a lot of our tax dollars, we've taken that control from ourselves and given it to the government, and that's frankly not good for anybody.
Randy, you have a comment for our guest, Genevieve Wood. Thank you for calling, and go ahead.
How you doing? How you doing, guest, Ms. Woods? Two quick questions. Question number one, are you a lobbyist? Hello?
Genevieve. Did my guest drop? Genevieve. Something happened, Randy.
Oh.
Go ahead, though. Continue.
Well, can I talk?
Yes, please continue.
Oh, I was saying it sounded like she was a lobbyist or something. And
no.
Like
she has a very significant position at the Heritage Foundation.
Is that Grover Norquist's thing?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's like a Republican think tank, isn't it?
It's a think tank.
It's a Republican, right? Is it Republican?
It's neutral. They accept funds and grants, so they must be neutral.
Well, I was going to try to ask her, because every time we get a Democratic administration, we try to bring taxes up to try to pay these entitlements. But every time we get a Republican administration, they just keep saying, we got to give the rich people a tax break. I was understanding what she was saying about, Social Security being a time that Warren Buffett shouldn't get a check and all that, but these people pay into it. Now, if you start doing that, the first thing the Republicans are going to start saying is you're doing class warfare. You're taking away my Social Security check. Rich people, I don't think all rich people, but most of the people that think or lean Republican always say when you raise their taxes or don't lower their taxes again and again and again, it's class warfare. I mean, unless you're going to say to yourself, all right, we're going to keep giving rich people tax cuts, and, we're going to just let people die. Because at the end of the day, if you're broke and you can't eat and you can't get health care, you're going to die. The founding fathers didn't build our country that way. Rich people were getting taxed at almost 90% when this country started. If they keep saying, I want to go back to the ways of the founding fathers and the Constitution, let's go back to 90% taxes.
You really think 90% taxes is the answer? Oh, Genevieve, you're back.
No.
Genevieve,
no, but they keep saying,
Randy, I'm sorry, so she can answer your question. Genevieve?
Yeah, well, and I got dropped off there, so I apologize. I didn't hear the full question, but let me do my best on that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go
ahead.
Look,
if Social Security is supposed
90% was hypothetical.
I hear you, and I don't even think President Obama wants a 90% tax on anybody. Listen, if Social Security, if these programs were supposed to truly be insurance programs, what does insurance mean? Insurance means it's there if you need it. That is not the way we treat Social Security today. People who actually need it get it, but many of them, frankly, don't get enough if that's truly all they're relying on. And then we have many people who don't need it who get it. And what we're suggesting is, look, it's not fair to people, and I hear this from folks all the time, and they're right. Look, I was forced to pay into these programs all these years. Now you're going to tell me you're not giving me my money back? No, this is not going to come in effect immediately tomorrow, and what you paid in you're not going to get out. But as you all probably know, many people get a lot more out of Social Security than they ever paid into it because they're on it for many, many years. So we've got to address these issues in terms of at what age, and so people who are currently on Social Security and are nearing retirement age would not be affected by this. But right under that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is the foundation constructing a bill that addresses these problems with rich people getting their money? Or
yes, sir. If you go to our website called savingthedream.org, you'll see the full plan. We are working with members of Congress right now, asking them to take a hard look at this, which many of them are. I expect to see over the course of this year pieces of it, frankly, introduced as legislation. Armstrong, as you said, this is an election year. Very little happens in Washington except a lot of hot air during an election year. But the point is we want to get this into legislative form so that come 2013, hopefully we have some new officials in town who are ready to truly take this on.
Randy, thank you for calling.
Are poor people going to be cut off?
No. Poor people will be helped.
Absolutely not.
No. Randy,
absolutely not.
You got to raise taxes to pay for these programs.
No, that's what our plan will tell you, is that you don't have to raise taxes.
See,
you do it our way.
You got to raise taxes. Why y'all keep... Republican people always say that. We don't have to raise taxes. You have to bring in money to pay these programs.
Randy, I tell you what, you read the plan and you tell me if we still have to raise taxes.
Read the plan. We're going to move on to some other callers. Allison, are you there? Allison.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm happy to be with you.
Yes, go ahead. So, Genevieve.
Allison is our policy expert on this issue, Armstrong. She can answer any question you put her way.
Oh, I didn't know she was on the line.
I just came on. I just snuck in.
Oh, so Genevieve, so let me get back to this before I get Allison in this conversation, because this is an important discussion. You're also dealing with economic, legal, and foreign policy challenges. I'd just like for you to briefly discuss those with our audience.
Sure. Well, I mean, the bus tour that we're doing, Saving the American Dream, does focus on, cutting spending, fixing the debt, getting us back on the path to prosperity. But the fact is, you can't have a solid legal system, and you certainly can't protect the country with the national defense that we need if our fiscal house isn't in order. So the path that that our nation is on in terms of spending affects every single issue. Everybody out there is not touched by the fact that we're in the debt that we're in and that we're spending on the spending binge that we've been on. So whether you consider yourself a social conservative, you consider yourself a national defense conservative, you have to be very concerned about where we are as a nation. That's what this particular tour is about.
How can people learn more about the tour? Where is the tour? Where is it going? How can people be a part of it?
Thank you. Yeah, if people go to, we're doing this tour, by the way, we're sharing it with the Family Research Council. They're hitting on many of the social issues that people care about, the issue of life, marriage, protecting religious liberty. We're hitting on saving the American dream, but we're going to cities and states all around the country between now and Election Day. And if you go to valuesbus.com, you'll see the you'll see the calendar that shows all the different stops that we'll be making. We're, of course, going to be populating that and adding to it over the next several weeks and months as we add new events to that calendar. So I just ask people to check in regularly there, and from there you can also learn more about the Saving the American Dream plan.
How will you measure success from this tour?
The way we measure success is going to be if we have new elected officials in Washington next year, and there's an opportunity to really start acting on true reforms when it comes to taxes, when it comes to entitlements, when it comes to spending, and people stand up and say, yes, we've got to do these things. That's how we'll know we had success.
Oh, wow.
That's a high bar, isn't it? But listen, that's where we are. We're no more can you just kind of keep saying, we'll tinker around the edges, we'll fix this next time. We're at a point you got to do it now. And you know what, Armstrong, we just kicked this tour off last week. We were in South Carolina. We were in a few different places in Florida. I think the people out there know that. I think people outside of Washington have a much better understanding of how serious it is for our country right now than many politicians give them credit for. So people were hungry for this. They were hungry for the information. They wanted more literature to distribute to other folks in their neighborhoods, their families. So I'm very optimistic that people do know what's going on and they have the courage to do something about it.
Well, thank you for sharing this with us. And we'd like to update your tour as it moves around the country and have you periodically come on and others to talk about it and the kind of momentum and how people can actually be a part of where the bus is landing on this tour.
That's terrific. We'd love to do it. Thank you,
Well,
Armstrong.
thank you for including us on with your list of people that you wanted to share this important information with. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll be back.
Armstrong Williams returns in a moment.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933. Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Everybody knows that trans fat is really bad for you, and everybody tries to avoid it. So why is it still in Marie Callender's pies, Pop Secret's popcorn, and Long John Silver's claim strips? Good question. Lots of big food manufacturers are still using the stuff, and the feds aren't doing enough to stop it. So eat smart if you can. It's tax scam season once again. Watch out for people who are out to swipe your refund or to get your personal account information. Use well-known tax preparers and never answer any email or phone call that asks for your Social Security or bank account information. Ford's recalling Escape SUVs from 2000 and 2001. The brake fluid can leak and start a fire. They're also recalling Ford Freestar and Mercury Monterey models from the 2004 and 2005 model years because the transmission can fail. I'm Stacy Cohen. You can learn more at consumeraffairs.com.
Something happening here. It stopped recording. I don't know what happened. I didn't touch
Amanda, age 3. Carlos, age 9.
An abducted child is everyone's child.
Jada, age 14.
To get free Amber Alerts on your cell phone, go to wirelessamberAlerts.org. A child is calling for help. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
If you have a question or comment for today's Armstrong Williams Show, call 733-5620. That's 733-5620. Call and be a part of today's Armstrong Williams Show on 620 AM, where knowledge is power.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. What is it going to take to get our country back on track? What is it going to take? Is it going to take the people? Do we have the kind of leadership in Congress? Listen, in all of my life, I have never seen an election year like the one we're facing. And I want to talk about it. I want to talk about this. But, there are just many things I want to talk about with our audience today. One is, Joe Paterno's funeral is set for Wednesday in a private family service with a public memorial service to follow the next day. Now, Paterno died Sunday at the age of 85, less than 3 months after his 61-year coaching career at Penn State, which abruptly ended amid criticism of his response to child sexual abuse by his former assistant Sandusky. Obviously, the family made it clear that he died of a broken heart and was devastated by the allegations. Listen, no one is trying to minimize the great contributions of Joe Paterno and how he and his wife touched the lives of so many young men and others along the way. There's just no question. None of us will ever know the impact that this man has had on their lives for generations to come. We can never know his generosity and his kindness. But you cannot also ignore the fact that he was told that his defensive coordinator was caught in the shower with a young boy. And that coach was not fired and remained. He has to take some responsibility for that. He was the coach. And how Sandusky could have remained at Penn State, given those allegations, is just mind-boggling. But none of us are perfect. Joe Paterno did report it to the law enforcement officials on campus. Obviously, it was not reported to law enforcement officials outside the campus, which was a mistake. And so, I was watching the press recently almost apologize for the fact that he left office in such disgrace and then was almost immediately diagnosed with lung cancer, and he passed. So no one dies a perfect human being. We all are imperfect. And I think you can celebrate Joe Paterno as well as constructively criticize him for his shortcomings. There is no way, there's just no way that what happened on that campus should have happened. There's just no way. I'm sorry. It's inexcusable. A lot of lives were destroyed. And you never know just how these kids have been impacted by what we have known through media reports. There's so much that we will never know. So I think, yes, you should celebrate the life of Joe Paterno as a coach, a family man, a contributor to his community. But it is extremely difficult not to acknowledge the fact that he grossly erred in not firing Sandusky and getting that situation under control where this man would not continue his behavior. I just think it's important. I mean, I don't think it's something that we need to walk on eggshells over either. The facts are the facts. He just did not handle it right. I'm sorry, he just didn't. And hopefully we all can learn from situations like this when we're put in a position of leadership. Leadership sometimes you have to make difficult decisions. And in that instance, Paterno did not make the difficult decisions. I'm sorry, he just didn't. Reverend Spry, you're on the air.
Hey there, Armstrong. How you doing, sir?
Just fine, thank you.
That's good. I agree with you 110%. My heart and my prayers go out to Paterno family, and God bless him. God bless his family. But the fact is that he did not take the right steps in firing Sandusky and calling the authorities. I just, if I seen something like that, I probably would have got hurt or I'd hurt somebody. I couldn't have left that child in that room and walked away. I just couldn't have did that. From his leadership position as a coach, I would have had to bring it under investigation. And if they wouldn't have did anything, I definitely had to call authorities. But I think something needs to, in this country, a law bill need to be passed. Just like the school teachers, if they see any kind of abuse of a child, they have to, the law says they have to report it. And I think these campus police get away with murder. A lot of things happen with the athletes on campuses that are not misdemeanors. They're actually felonies. They're serious crimes. And if it involves the athletes, a lot of times they sweep it under the rug. I've counseled many people, many of girls that have been date raped and beaten and everything else. And yet on Saturday, this joker was playing football. And I think the campus police need to be checked thoroughly and audited, because they hide a lot of stuff, and people, the victims, suffer so much. So I'm praying that a lot of good come out of this. I know it's been bad, and I'm praying for the family of those victims. But I just hope that some laws and some bills are changed immediately so this will never, ever happen again. And I think Joe Paterno stayed around a little bit too long.
Listen, and you're not going to get an argument out of me. And you know what? You made a greater point. You know, it's not even about the kids or the girls that are date raped, or innocent people that are harmed. They protect these superstar athletes as if they're gods.
Yeah, they do, and it's sad because just like today I listened to talk radio for athletes, you know, and I won't say the radio station, but somebody called in and said, well, the young boy went home and didn't tell nobody. Like, he was the problem. And then Joe Paterno was just a coach. Just a coach? Are you kidding me? Just a coach. This man had a statue up there. This man, I guess, bled blue. Come on, man. He wasn't just a coach. Even if he was just a coach in a pickup league, he still bear the responsibility and the leadership. He has to be responsible and held responsible. So thank you, Dr. Armstrong, for bringing the truth. I appreciate you. God bless you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Reverend Spry. Listen, it is true. I mean, many of you would be shocked at what goes on these campuses. I mean, even when you think about the hazing, how they can brutally hurt and harm kids who pledge and sometimes kill these kids, and they cover it up because they feel the institution is greater than the person that has been harmed. And they protect these kids, especially these star athletes. And let me tell you, no one is above the law. I'm sorry, no one is above the law. And we have to set an example that there's a rule of law, and it's a law for everybody to obey. And there are consequences for those that don't obey the law. You know, this situation, this Republican race is really getting out of hand. Romney is warning of a Gingrich surprise. I mean, why? I mean, listen, Romney should win on his own merit. You know, the bottom line, Newt Gingrich should not drop out of the race just because the GOP establishment and the media feels that Romney is a more viable candidate to defeat the president. I'm sorry. Gingrich has every right to stay in this race and may the best man win and the last man standing. I'm sorry. I mean, listen, you know, look, I was not personally disappointed by the results in South Carolina. No, obviously not. You know, I actually think Gingrich is a decent guy. I really do. I think he's a decent guy. I think many of you would be shocked if you knew some of the things that Gingrich championed when he was in Congress. So what if people say he's erratic? I mean, you think any of these politicians are not without fault? They're trying to make Gingrich to be the poster child of what we should never elect. Come on, that is just, I mean, it is unfair. It's manipulating the public, and it's trying to tell us who's best for us in the White House and the GOP nominee. I don't want anybody to insult my intelligence to try to tell me who I should vote for by this media manipulation. I'm sorry. It's just not going to work. The American people, if they want to vote for President Obama, vote for Obama. Make it your decision. Don't let the media and these advertising campaigns manipulate your vote and what you believe in. Absolutely. And also, the high court turned aside recusal requests on a health care challenge. That's right. The Supreme Court has turned aside a motion from a political advocacy group that sought to argue that Justice Elena Kagan should not participate in the upcoming blockbuster appeals over the constitutionality of health care reform. The justices denied the request from Freedom Watch without comment Monday. Kagan herself did not get involved in the particular motion. And, many people feel it's the right decision. The court brief order all but assures that the newest justice will participate in the late March arguments and eventually rule on the case merits. Similar calls for recusal from other groups have been directed at Justice Clarence Thomas. I'm Armstrong Williams. It's Open Mic. We'll be back. Armstrong. Armstrong. Armstrong.
Armstrong Williams returns in a moment.
The Armstrong-Williams Show.
Join us on Tuesdays for the Armstrong-Williams Show, where we explore the global economy with guest commentator Terry Giles. That's on Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on WGCV 620 AM.
WGCV, where knowledge is power.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com. For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Teach me another one, Dad.
Okay. A chick in a car and a car won't go. That's the way to spell Chicago.
Take time to be a dad today. Learn more at fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
If you have a question or comment for today's Armstrong-Williams Show, call 733-5620. That's 733-5620. Call and be a part of today's Armstrong-Williams Show on 620 AM, where knowledge is power.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
And welcome back to the Armstrong Williams Show. We have some people on our live stream who said they agree with me for a change, Joe, about the fact that, it's offensive when the media and these so-called pundits try to tell us who to vote for. I mean, I could care less if Ronald Reagan came out of his grave and endorsed Mitt Romney or somebody else. That's not going to influence my vote. I decide who I want to vote for. These celebrities can endorse these candidates and these initiatives, but I make up my own mind. Absolutely. 733-562-01866-620-6620. These newspapers can endorse candidates. It has no influence on me. Literally, I'm telling you. What influences my vote is the candidate. I do my research. I watch them during these debates. I go to their websites and read their policies, and I talk to people who actually know them. Okay? I make up my own mind. I don't want somebody trying to tell me. Do you realize how precious the right to vote is? Do you know how sacred that is? I'm sorry. It's just it's offensive to think that somebody could cheapen our vote. People can say whatever they want to say about Gingrich. Romney can say it. Chris Christie can say it with his demeaning comments about Gingrich. Has no impact. In fact, what it does, it actually emboldens people to support him. Jacob, you have a comment.
How you doing, Armstrong?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, Armstrong, a lot of people aren't like you and I, and they don't want to do the research and figure out what a candidate is all about. If they did, Newt Gingrich would never be in a position that he's in right now. You know, so unfortunately, a lot of these people that do vote don't know who they're voting for. You see that in Wisconsin. You see that in Ohio. You see it all over the country where somebody puts out there that they're conservative or they're liberal, and they believe in this and that, and people follow right behind that. And then when they get in office, it's something different. Then everybody's like, well, what happened? You know, so, and unfortunately, that's the way it is. And politicians like it that way, because the less educated we are, the less informed we are, the better it is for them to do what they want to do to manipulate the system.
And you know what? They want to manipulate us into how they want us to vote and support these issues. They don't want a free-thinking electorate. They don't want us thinking for ourselves.
No, and that's what Citizens United is all about. I mean, this idea that we would allow these multinational corporations to funnel money from anywhere in the world, from China, from the Middle East, from Europe, from anywhere in the world, to funnel that into our campaign. The fact that we don't have anybody on the Tea Party side, we don't have anybody from the Occupy side, nobody is standing up and saying that that was wrong. You got a few people out there that recognize what that law has done to our political system, but there aren't enough people out there saying that to their politicians. You know, when they go to these town halls, you know, why are you voting for some factory in China to donate money to your campaign? You know, and again, if the electorate is less informed, they don't know that these things are going on. All they see is, you know, Mitt Romney standing in front of a barn saying he loves America and everybody votes for him, or Newt Gingrich saying, you know, don't attack me about all the stuff I've done in the past, and everybody wants to vote for him. You know, so it's people have to do their work and become educated and be more informed.
Let me ask you, why do you have issues with former Speaker Gingrich?
Because unfortunately, I lived in the Washington, D.C. area under Newt Gingrich's rise to power, and I witnessed, you know, being a student in the public school system, you know, I witnessed the destruction of the public school system, the beginning of it under Newt Gingrich, and his conservative revolution. Just moved to move people away from public schools into these private schools that are religious based, and the quote unquote remodeling of the welfare system, and things like that. You know, Newt Gingrich was the tip of the spear of that. And then, you know, the culmination of that was the impeachment of President Clinton. While he's going after Clinton, he's doing the same thing that Mr. Clinton is doing, and it's so Newt Gingrich's past and his present, the things that he's saying now are just totally nowhere near where we need to be as a country to get better. He continues to divide along race lines, along financial lines. You know, it's funny, you know, he was a free market capitalist until he got into the campaign, didn't have any money. Now he wants to scream about Mitt Romney spending all this money to smear him or whatever he's saying he's doing. But the facts are that you lived a life, a public life, a well-documented life, and he's done a lot of dirt in his life. And it's about judgment. We talk about the President of the United States, you know, having, you know, judgment that's above and beyond normal people, then Newt Gingrich doesn't qualify.
But, you know, listen, and I'm not here to defend, but look, I think the bar has been so severely dumbed down. The one thing I do agree with you on, when Newt Gingrich was criticizing Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, he was carrying on his own extramarital affair, and so he was a hypocrite. And I don't like.
Also, it wasn't criticizing. He called the Clinton-Gore administration the most corrupt and inept administration in history. You know, and for the Speaker of the House to even say that, first of all, I think is a treasonous statement. But then at the same time, to be carrying on your own affair, with, you know, while you're going after the president for his affair, it's totally, I mean, hypocrisy is the word everybody likes to use, but it's actually it's more sinister or you know, devilish for somebody to go about their business that way and then not expect anybody to say to him, look, you know, you don't have the judgment or the qualifications to even run for president. You know.
Well, look, I think there's merit in what you're saying, but look, I think that all of these politicians have character defects, and we should not set ourselves up to believe that we're getting some saint in the White House.
I agree with you, Armstrong, but the whole thing about judgment, you know, judgment on things that matter most in a person's life is what we have to look at when we're looking at somebody that's trying to run for president. You know, do people vote for things they don't want to vote for? Yes. Do people do things that they don't necessarily want to do or they feel like they have to do? Yes. But for a man to become president, he has to have things like impulse control. He has to have things like a sense of where he is in his life when it relates to his family. We got to have a man who understands that America is not a business. You're talking about running a country, not a corporation. Those are two totally different things. And when people don't understand that, when they try to muddle those things together, that's where you run into problems with candidates. And Newt Gingrich, and you know, again, here's a man who stood up there and said at the one of the debates the other night, he talked about how the media makes it hard for quality people to run for office. No, it doesn't. There aren't enough quality people out there to run for office. That's why they don't run, because they've done so much dirt in their lives, they don't want it to come out. You know, so does every candidate have a flaw? Yes. The president has flaws. Mitt Romney has flaws. Newt Gingrich has flaws. But, man, I mean, you have to draw the line somewhere. I mean, we're not talking about issues. We're talking about your personal conduct with your family. You know, this man has children, and he has no impulse control. You know, he sees another woman, he wants her, he goes and gets her, you know, and leaves the damage behind him. It's totally insane for people to say to the world, because the world is watching this, that Newt Gingrich is qualified to be president of the United States of America.
Well, he is qualified. Come on,
he is not qualified.
Oh, he is qualified.
He's not qualified. He's qualified to be a debater. He's qualified to go on Fox News and spin his little conservative rhetoric.
According to the Constitution, he's qualified. You can't take that away from him.
According to the Constitution, but there's also a vetting process that goes on. And everybody complains about how long it takes and all the money and stuff like that. I do believe the money is a problem, but I like the fact that these guys have to run for a year, you know, so they can be properly vetted. So when the time comes to vote, you do know everything you can possibly know about a candidate. I mean, for example, let me give you a perfect example. Imagine if our political process was only like a month, and somehow John Edwards was able to get the Democratic nomination for president, doing what he was doing. Can you imagine the scandal, you know, if he had become president and everything that he was doing had come out? I mean, that would cripple this nation more than anything else that's going on right now. So the vetting process, the American people have to stop voting on how much they hate the president or how much they love conservatism or how much they love liberalism or whatever their little core petty differences are. This is about this entire country. It's about 300 million people. You know, so if people have to put down their banners and their isms and all that kind of stuff and think with common sense and think who is the best qualified person to take this country to the next level.
Listen, it's always a pleasure listening to you. I always respect your perspective. Don't always agree with all of it, but I would defend your right to say it. And thank you, and I want to thank our earlier guest, Genevieve Wood, for joining us, and also always the best part of the show, our callers. I'm Armstrong Williams, and don't forget to join us tonight on Sirius 128 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care.
Speak English. Armstrong. Virtuous Society. Armstrong. I dare you to listen. Hey, turn it up. Hey, Armstrong, get on the right side. Armstrong,
elevate your mind. I'm Armstrong Williams on the right side.
Yo, man, it's your boy KO. And you're tuned in to the most conservative of our brothers.
The Armstrong Williams Show. Please give me a break.
The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are not necessarily those of WGCV 620 AM, its staff or management, or our parent company, Glory Communications Incorporated.
Next, you get to talk with PA on your way home. The PA Bennett.
Huh? What? Oh, what kind of noise? What noise do I hear? I'm not hearing any noise. Oh, no, we got to find a way to make that work, because that helps me with my research. Oh, please. Oh, because you got a complaint? Last time I checked, he doesn't work here.
Oh, no, it's not. They're actually doing extensive, have people going over their studio right now because of your stuff with Alex. So, yeah, I believe that ain't got nothing to do with me.